This week at a major, Tuesdays are a big day. It's the busiest day probably on any tour truck all year. A lot of things happening. We're going to hit a couple of these trucks today with some very unique items that I think are going to be important this week. One is turf interaction, and one is finding a utility iron or a utility club to fit the bag. There's some unique things happening on the ping truck and some cool stuff happening with Strixon. So let's get on these trucks and find out what the hell is happening for Oakmont this week. This golf course is a beast. Let's get into it. Jocko Neiman is obviously killing it out there, but he's got a really, what I would call interesting, some would call weird bag setup for as fast as he is. So let's start with the 5 hybrid in his bag. How did it start? Why is it there? And like, how do you work that out for me?
By now, it's probably been 4 or 5 years that he's had it in the bag. All started with him struggling with a little 4-iron height. If you've seen Wacko play, he's kind of a low flight guy. He has the ability to hit anything low, but for a while there, it was hard creating height. So we were trying to get the 4-iron out of the bag. He had played 7-wood, still plays 7-wood, but he found that the gap was too much there. Wasn't able to kind of, finesse the 7-wood as much. So we actually tried a 4 and a 5 hybrid. Originally standard setting on the 4 hybrid to try to create the height. 5 hybrid we lofted down. He actually liked the visuals of the 5 hybrid a little bit. So basically we had to dial in speed, launch, things like that, and we were able to get 5 hybrid, a little shorter than standard. But
another interesting thing that you guys are doing a lot of this week at Oakmont, which kind of like blends into the 5 hybrid conversation, is you're doing a ton of 9-woods.
Yes.
Out here. So
9-woods.
And what I like about what's the lofted fairways that you guys are doing is they're all really high spin, like they're all the max platform.
Correct.
So who's kind of looking at these, like particularly what players are kind of looking at a 9-wood this week?
Yeah, so Mackenzie Hughes was one of the guys that requested it.
Okay.
Plays a 7-wood already. And that's auto. It's always in the bag.
Right.
So he's saying it's great out of the rough, but why not get more advantage out of it, right? The rough is so thick, the blades are so strong that guys are really struggling to even fight out a 7-wood.
Okay.
So more lofted 9-wood, it's only going to help you on shots out of the fairway, right? Because you're producing more height, you're getting a better landing angle. So it actually becomes a utility club everywhere, out of the rough.
And the way you guys make them, because you guys, I say specific to ping, you guys cut them a little shorter, so if you needed to drive it down, you could, right?
Yep.
So at what point, like on the PGA Tour and on LIV, we're seeing a lot of 3 irons are disappearing, 4 irons are disappearing. I mean, do you see this trend?
Yes. We have a couple guys on the PGA Tour right now that the 9-wood is in the bag.
Okay.
From week in to week out. It's really because, one, the ball doesn't spin that much.
Right.
It's hard to create height, and these greens are always firm.
And so your land angle's steep,
your landing angle, right? The problem is, unless you're really trying to hit a fairway and hit something chasing, you're trying to create height, trying to get stopping power on the greens, and really the best way to do it is a landing angle, how it's coming in. So when guys are hitting 4 irons that are head high, landing in the front, next thing you know, they're out the back.
I'm on the Strixon PGA Tour truck with Mr. Rob Waters. So I have a question. So I've done, the last 3 or 4 months, I've been kind of doing my research around the fitting houses, and your irons kill everybody at the fitting base, right? So obviously Ryan Fox won last week. Sepp Straka's having a great year. Shane Lowry's having a great year. They're all in the 5 and 7 ZXI irons. So specifically, in your opinion, what is it about these irons that are becoming so popular on tour and then obviously in the fitting bays? Like, what's unique about these?
Feel of the golf club itself is second to none. It's the softest feeling iron out here with the frame that we've got on there. It makes it very playable for all. The ZX7, most of our guys are playing in, let's say, 5 iron down, and then we move into the ZX5s.
Which is your higher launch?
Which is a higher launch, highest spinning iron we make. And it in the past, in our utility club, that was always the go-to in the long irons. When we came out with the ZXI5, immediately launch was up, spin was up, carry was up.
Okay.
So it's just more forgiving and easier to hit and easier for the guys to get in the air.
Well, what you guys are really nailed too is the blending of these 2 sets. So and I've found that these guys that are shallow, so if you take somebody like Sepp Straka, that's on the shallower side, great sole for him. Guy that's steep like Ryan Fox, great sole for him. So like this V-sole, for example, which is kind of like the hero of the story, right? So just explain to me for your normal golfer out there that's looking into Strixon irons, like Are these is this a sole that's just versatile for everybody, or is it?
Sure it is.
Okay.
I mean, it's the whole reason for the sole is to have good turf interaction,
Right.
get the club in the ground, get it out of the ground as quick as possible.
Okay.
So for the average player who is steep, it's going to help them hit more quality shots for sure.
And even the shallower guys, like for me, like I'm kind of a picker. I've been playing these for a little while now, and what I'm noticing is that for somebody that's kind of a picker, even then I'm still getting the right part of the face on the ball. Like it's not bouncing, it's not doing this thing, it's still getting into the turf. So like it's just sharp enough and just bouncy enough to kind of do
best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds, and I think that's kind of the secret sauce of what you guys do. You combo that with a feel and everything else. So talking specifically about the 7, is this a larger, did you guys go slightly bigger?
It's very similar sizes from the original, from the 745. We just cleaned up different areas of the golf club to make it look, and like you mentioned, the blend. I mean, in the past, the 5 was a little bit thicker, a little bit more bulkier.
Okay.
So we've tried to blend it all together where you're getting the advantage of having the ZXi5 for getting the ball in the air and spin, and to make it not look so different from playing position, so it looks like 2 different sets of golf clubs.
And you guys do a really good job also, like when you're setting an iron down like the 5, you don't see a lot of the back edge. Like some of these higher, like, you know, lower CG irons, you start to see the back.
Yeah, correct.
And where I think you guys have, and this is for the consumer out there, where I think you guys really kill it is because of the sole. When you get into these higher launching irons, these bulk, like, you know, chunkier 4, 5, and 6 irons, it can get a little bouncy, right? You feel like you're hitting driver off the deck all the time, and that's what I think you guys have done really, really well. Is this sole still works even in the longer irons, off a tee or off the ground. So, so how many? I mean, as far as non-staff play, I mean, do you guys get a lot of looks for non-staffers with these?
Yeah,
things?
we've got more. I want to, don't hold me to this, but we get a lot more guys outside of our staff playing these irons.
Right.
I mean, anywhere from 6 to 10 to 12 players, depending on the week.
The Strixon irons are always
leader in the clubhouse.
They kill everybody, and it's probably not the funnest thing to say to the other iron companies out there. But when it comes to the fitting bays, like Strixon is killing people, and there's a specific reason, and I think a lot of it's the feel and the sole. So, Robbie, as always,
thanks, pal. Enjoyed it,
my man.
Always.
All the curiosity right now is around these irons. So, what are we, 3-4 weeks into this?
Yeah, we started at Colonial, and so we're hitting week 4 here.
The one thing I'm really excited about is there are some subtle differences that you did. I'm gonna start with the 150, which is obviously a very popular iron in the last line. But you guys it looks like you guys have done a little bit to the back edge and the front edge.
Yeah, I think the stuff, you know, I always say the bottom of our irons is as often steel from Aaron Dill and Bob Vokey. And when we're looking at sole geometry, we're listening to players, but we're working with Aaron and his team to help us on how do we get that geometry the best for the most amount of players.
Okay. And then as far as like, there's one last thing I'm going to ask you about. You can confirm or deny this. So what I'm noticing here, so the last part of the T100, which I thought was a beautiful iron, but this little area here, it looks like there's some weight that was moved over here. Is that something you can talk about now, or am I noticing something that's not there, or is that a real thing?
Yeah, I think you're noticing some of the ID. Obviously, when you look at the lineup altogether, we're trying to make them, because 80% of our players play more than one model.
Okay.
So we're trying to make the aesthetics throughout the lineup look really good in your bag as you mix your iron setup.
Okay.
You know, but then doing a lot under the hood. So we want to give Marnie and his team room under the hood, under that ID, to make a lot of good things happen. Okay,
so now we're gonna get to the tour stuff. Those are more Johnny Wunder. I had to ask JJ questions. So out on the range, I'm seeing a lot of, to start, saw Tom Kim, like 250. I think it was 5 through wedge in the T100. Looking at these T150s, and I noticed that, you know, like on WRX and some of the websites that post a lot of pictures, I'm seeing a lot of T150s get some full bag treatment. Now, is that a new thing, or is there a lot of that in the previous?
Yeah, I mean, Will Zalatoris played a full bag in the previous gen, except for the 3-iron, he played 350.
Okay.
You know, we're seeing like a JT Poston this week. He's going to put new T100s in the bag.
Okay.
But the 4-iron 150 just gives him that little extra launch at the top end. So it's a really nice mix, and that's where we really wanted the aesthetics to look similar, because we have a lot of players that put it just at that top end, because it's just got that little extra blade length and that little extra height.
Are you seeing like a little higher launch, or I mean, what are you noticing in the air that you can speak to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when you go up and down the range, how many guys are you hearing, my 3-iron launch is too high?
Right.
I mean, that's just not words that happen.
That's not a thing, yeah.
And so it's really more us trying to create launch and doing different things with loft or shaft or doing things like that. So really what we kind of challenge R&D to is, can we do a lot of the heavy lifting in the head?
Okay.
And so that's the big thing is create that easy long end of the bag. So with JT, he's playing a 5-iron in the T100 and then moves to the 250 in the 4-iron.
Okay.
And so that helps bridge the gap to his 5-wood. So we're kind of using
Which is
that,
not coming out of the bag anytime soon. Yeah.
But that's just that cool part, is being able to push some ball speed and launch at the top end as you kind of transition and really help the gapping and descent angle at the top.
So when you're like, you guys are big on, which I think is brilliant, by the way, the 3Ds of how you guys fit, because I know you guys use that kind of on tour, which I think is like peak height. Can you give me the 3Ds really quick?
3Ds are distance, which is consistent distance. So anytime we're sole fitting or looking at that, we want to make sure that you're hitting your distances all the time.
Right.
And then that 5-mile-an-hour ball speed gap from club to club.
Okay.
Then you're looking for really good direction, making sure that we have the right chassis,
Start
the right
lines,
lie, and
everything
all
else,
those
yeah.
things, and then descent angle. So on tour, we talk about height a lot, but what we're really talking about is descent angle.
Okay.
The easy one out here is, hey, your 8-iron goes 110 feet. Let's make your 5-iron go 110 feet.
Okay.
For an amateur, the easy one is looking at the 45 to 50 degree land angle, so the ball stops. You get a place like this, greens are really firm, they're really undulating.
Huge here.
Having that steep descent angle just opens up that pin position for you.
So when you're talking to somebody like JT and Tom Kim said this to me on the range the other day, I asked him like about the 250, what do you like? He's like, it's really easy for me to get in the air. He's like, as the generations have kind of gone on, there was always a club or something that I would have to kind of help or do something to get it a little higher. He's like, these ones seem to, if I want my angle of attack to be down, I can get my peak height in the same spot. He's like, which has been nice because it just, as each line goes, it just kind of gets easier and easier and easier.
Yeah, we listened to the Jason Bales and Mark Blackburn on how they're teaching players.
Right.
And, you just look at how much, players are staying on top of it. And so we want to make sure that we're creating the launch through center of gravity and not creating just a lot of spin.
Right,
One of the most fun ones out here is that. I mean, Ben On historically has just struggled with 3-woods. And, we brought this to him at Valspar, I think 3 years ago now, as a 1-iron. And
it's like his 3-wood now, isn't it?
It's a 265 cover. It's his 3-wood. He goes driver 1-iron. This week he's going to play a hybrid as well.
Okay.
For some of the rough. But, yeah, that's his go-to golf club off and off the tee.
Again, I think what you guys are doing here is incredible. I'm going to be able to hit him next week in TPI, but always love your expertise. These weeks are always a little crazy for you guys. You have, more wedges in play than anybody. But what I want to know, and I get this question a lot, give me the top 3 grinds that go out on your tour and your tour. Like, what are the most popular ones that go out and why?
It's kind of funny you say that. So, I mean, we have a plethora of different grind, just so many different grind options, so many different toys that we get to play with in each and every single week. Most of the players here in the United States, they gravitate towards T, K-Star, K, A+, and M. Those are the ones that really kind of gravitate towards a lot of the places that the players play.
Okay.
And it's a good traveling system for those wedges too. So that way the players are not having to, come in and having to switch. Now sometimes they do,
right.
But the good part is that a lot of these players too, with the ones I just named, they'll travel with 2 of those.
Yeah,
so they'll travel with the T, they'll travel with the K-Star. So, you'll see a lot of, general people playing the same grinds down the line, which is really neat because it's proven to work.
So what I'm seeing a lot of is with T, like if I'm going to use like Xander, for example, right? Like Xander uses a T, but he also uses a K-Star. But I also see other players, some on your staff that will have a T, but also K-Star usually is the wedge that I see back up. A K-Star usually backs up the T. Is there, why is that, do you think? Because they're kind of different animals, to be honest with you.
It's funny you say that. Will has a really good way of describing that.
Yeah, so K-Star, I've actually got one in my hand here.
It's a great wedge.
Yeah, so you see a bit more width in there, don't we?
Right.
In a T-grind, you get a bit of bounce on the front section, but it's very small.
Right.
So when you open the face up, it sits super, super tight to the ground.
Okay.
When we're getting softer conditions, you probably don't want that. You want a bit of help on the back
Especially
edge.
in the bunkers. It gets a little
Exactly.
unruly.
Yeah, like you see the conditions we've got here this week. Bunks are a little bit softer, a little bit more grainy, really thick rough around the green. So you need something that's going to help the club get through, which the sole's going to do on the K-Star.
Okay.
Whereas the T could potentially stick a little bit. T will be great on the short approaches we've got this week, but it's finding something that balances out both areas, which K-Star does really nicely.
Yeah, so T, like if I was going to walk through the golf course, like if I'm walking down one, walking into one, T is amazing.
Yeah.
Right? When you're on that, basically it's putting surface. But then
Exactly.
when you get to the rough, or you get even some of the fringe areas around here, probably not so great. Like I saw a lot of guys, around the greens, like
basically swinging under the ball or catching it high in the face because it was just, you know, the leading edge is sitting like that. So that's where a player would lean to case. Okay, now we're going to get to the A+M thing. So
Yes.
A+, to my knowledge, is an M with all the right angles basically carved out of it.
Bingo, you got it.
So would an M player theoretically also be an A+ player?
Yes.
They're the same human being.
They're the same human being, and the great part about M and A+ both. So M kind of gives you that stopping power through the turf.
Yes.
It'll get through pretty
And
good.
it's good squared up.
And
too.
it's
It's
good
not
squared
yeah,
up.
okay.
You know, it's got I would like to call kind of like a bumper
Sure.
on it. So it kind of gives you that a little bit of forgiveness factor going through the turf. But some of these guys are looking for speed.
Okay.
And so when you have that built into an M where you kind of have that little speed bump there, it tends to want to slow the wedge down ever so slightly. And players will feel that.
Slow down, you're just talking about it catches.
Exactly, just slightly catches through the turf, and players can feel that. And so when they come to us and say, hey, this is what I'm feeling, and they're an M player, we immediately know, like, hey, A+ is going to give you the same feels like M, but it's going to be faster.
Right.
And players this week are going to be looking for speed.
So we have, 100 and something wedges in play this week?
Oh yeah, we're going to have probably in the ballpark just north of around probably 300 wedges this week.
Okay, now are you guys doing anything like any 62, 64? Is that still a thing, or is that?
Yeah, 62 is still a thing this week. Guys this week, they're going to be looking for speed this week.
Right.
Loft is going to be good this week. Height is going to be a good thing this week.
Right.
But 62 really isn't a general purpose wedge for these types of conditions.
Right.
Every now and then a player will come in and say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. This is what I'm looking for. And if 62 matches what they're asking for, then that's what we're going to give them.
Yeah.
But you're generally going to see your 60s and 58s this week.
Okay, the last question I have is, this is more for the general golfer. What happens if you play on firm conditions or really soft bunkers? So like if you're a tee player, like where you're from,
Yep, we see it
like
all
if
the
we're in
time.
London or whatever, and you're playing and it's really firm, and then you get in the bunkers got a ton of sand in them.
Yeah, so we've got options.
So how does that work? In this case, this is where you guys would put in a 54 or a 56 that's got a ton of bounce.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
So like bag
Maybe
setup's
sure we're in
key.
60.
Yeah, bag setup's key. So you can go something lower bounce than the lob wedge, a little bit more bounce than the sand wedge. It's called a sand wedge for a reason.
Right.
Yeah, everyone grabs a lob wedge out when they get in a bunker these days, but sand wedge is the one.
Yeah.
Sand wedge is going to help in that softer sand, give you more bounce, give you more control, better
Right.
flow. Yeah.
See, as much crap as I talk about how much I know, this is one of the few rooms I'll walk in like that. So I understand. Anyway, Shane, Will, two busy lads here at the U.S. Open in Oakmont. I want to thank Titles for having me on the truck. It's Johnny and the boys on the truck, U.S. Open. Right here.